What if you found a portal to a parallel universe? What if you could slide into 1,000 different worlds? The same year, the same Earth, only different dimensions. A world where Sega ruled the console market, or where the Dreamcast was the best-selling console of all time, or where Dream Arena really did have 6 billion players online. Well, you've found the gateway. This is episode 5 of the games that never were. Picasso by Promethean Designs was a stealth action game that was first announced in early 2000 for PC, Dreamcast, and PS2. The idea for the game came about a few years earlier, but the developers felt the consoles at the time weren't powerful enough to realize their vision for the game. In Picasso, you have the option to play as either a male or female cat burglar. You've been hired by a rich tycoon to steal some of the world's most valuable artwork for his collection. There's a catch though, you'll be competing against a rival thief who has been hired by yet another wealthy individual for the same job. These two shady businessmen have made a wager to see who can acquire the artwork first. The game takes place in 12 real-world as well as fictional locations, including famous museums and huge mansions. Picasso was to have both single-player and multiplayer modes, the latter of which could be played locally or online. It was even hinted to support the Dreamcast's Versus Link cable, which would allow each player to have their own screen when playing in the same room. In the single-player mode, you'll start off by studying the blueprints of the location you're about to enter and choosing 5 items to bring with you. These items include things like chloroform, stun darts, and traps for temporarily immobilizing guards, cameras and a sound indicator for keeping eyes and ears on your surroundings, and suction cups for crawling along ceilings. Once your equipment is chosen, you'll choose where to enter the building, and once inside, your job is to find, obtain, and escape with the valuable piece of art, all without being detected. The game makes sure to make this as challenging as possible, with plenty of guards, security cameras, and laser beams standing in between you and your target. In addition, you'll also have to contend with the rival burglar, who will do just about anything to thwart your efforts and take the art for himself. In Picasso, you'll have to use all the gadgets at your disposal to help you through each level and remain undetected. You can set elaborate traps and keep an eye on them with cameras you place throughout the building, temporarily deafen guards with sound bombs, and use thermal imaging glasses to see through walls. The guards were to have very sophisticated AI, responding not only to vision, but also sounds, vibration, and even sixth sense, so a solid plan and strategic thinking are required to avoid them. The developers were adamant that this was to be a non-violent stealth game, so killing guards is not an option. Promethean Designs was creating a really unique gaming experience with Picasso, trading the typical violent action game for a more strategic and stealthy experience. They believed this made for more exciting and adrenaline-pumping gameplay. The game was originally intended for release in late 2001, but Promethean Designs encountered financial difficulty, resulting in employees leaving and the company going bankrupt. The game was supposedly about 50% complete, and a basic playable build is rumored to exist. Outcast by Belgian game developer Appeal is an action-adventure game that was first announced in 1998. The game started out as a PC exclusive, but a Dreamcast port was announced later in development. The story of Outcast begins on Earth in 2007 at a secret military testing facility. Scientists have created a device that can open up a portal to a parallel world. In order to study it, they send a probe through. Initially, the probe works perfectly, transmitting a feed of the alien world back to Earth. However, it's not long before things go horribly wrong. Shortly into the mission, an alien being damages the probe with an energy-based weapon. The resulting blast creates a vortex which threatens to destroy Earth. It's your job as former Navy SEAL Cutter Slade to travel to the parallel world along with 3 scientists to find and fix the probe. In the game, you take control of Cutter and explore the alien world of Adelpha. Adelpha appears very primitive compared to Earth, however their use of energy-based weapons and portals to travel between regions suggests that they were very advanced at one point. Outcast is an open-world game, so you're free to travel and explore to your heart's content. Much of the game will be spent talking to the natives called the Talon and learning the history of Adelpha. You can also perform tasks to help the natives, which when completed successfully will improve your reputation. A good reputation is crucial as it will make the Talon more helpful in your mission to find the probe. If you harm the natives in any way, they'll become angry and refuse to help you. The dialogue in the game will also vary depending on your reputation. The combat in Outcast is very unique in the fact that all weapons in the game fire slow-moving projectiles which require the player to constantly maneuver to avoid them. You start out with only a pistol, but you can purchase new weapons once you have enough money. You can also avoid combat by sneaking and crawling when enemies are nearby. In addition, there's also a device in the game that you can use to make yourself invisible. If spotted, however, enemies will sound an alarm to signal others to your location. On August 31st, 1999, Outcast was released on PC. While the game was very well received by critics, it was unfortunately a commercial failure, with only 50,000 copies sold in the US and only 400,000 worldwide. Due to the poor sales of the PC version, the Dreamcast port of the game was shelved. A sequel called Outcast 2: The Lost Paradise was originally headed to the Dreamcast as well, but was cancelled in 2001 when Appeal was forced to declare bankruptcy. Quark by Quantic Dream was a 3D action-adventure game that started development shortly after the release of their previous game, Omicron: The Nomad Soul, and was headed to both PC and Dreamcast. The game was to take many elements from Omicron, but gear more towards fantasy than sci-fi. Quantic Dream's CEO David Cage was quoted as saying, "After Nomad Soul, which was a dark, realistic sci-fi game, we all felt the need for something lighter with more fantasy." In the game, you take control of two different characters that are living in worlds parallel to each other. The first character is a boy named Waki who lives in the mystical fantasy world of Quark, and the other is his sister Una who is living on the streets of real-world London. Their parents were part of a group called the Traveling, who have the ability to travel between parallel worlds. They abandoned Waki and Una on separate worlds when they were very young, and so the siblings have no recollection of each other. The story begins when a black hole opens up in the sky and threatens to swallow both of their worlds. This is only the start of their problems though, as they'll have to contend with a former traveler named John Conrad who intends to become the god of all universes. Oh, and did I mention there's also an army of creatures called the Kroll from another dimension who want to kill the last of the travelers? Luckily, Waki and Una aren't alone on their journey. They are both helped by a group of animals, each with their own set of abilities which are useful for solving puzzles in the game. Together with your animal companions, you'll explore huge open worlds, engage in real-time battles, and progress the game's story. The story in Quark is non-linear and can change by your actions and decisions in the game. What's interesting is the fact that while the brother and sister know nothing of each other's existence, actions performed in one world would affect the other, so in a way, they're working together. Overall, Quark was set to be one of the Dreamcast's most intriguing titles. The game was originally planned for release in 2001, but was put on hold when they started working on a new game called Fahrenheit. Sadly, Quark became a distant memory and the project was scrapped. Quantic Dream cited the reason for this was because the market was too saturated with similar games and they felt it wouldn't stand out enough. DD Planet, developed by Doridoc, was a retro-style 2D shooter that was to be the second game in a series of simple online multiplayer games following Choo Choo Rocket. DD Planet was to be the first game developed by Doridoc, who had previously only done web development. Their entire team consisted of only 4 people: Dori and Doc, who did the artwork, Kentaro Hamasoto, who worked on the music, and Jiro Ohashi, who was the creative director. Much like Choo Choo Rocket, the game featured online as well as offline modes for 1 to 4 players. The goal was to eliminate all players on the map using slow-moving projectiles which you fired in an upward curve. You would aim your weapon by adjusting both the power and angle of the shot. The game included 3 different zones: Block Zone, Liquid Zone, and Gel Zone. Each one of these zones featured different gravity and terrain. The Gel Zone would feature terrain that morphed and changed as you moved upon it. The Liquid Zone would have pools of water which would hinder the projectile's movement, and the Block Zone had mountainous terrain which would make it more difficult to hit the other players. There are also various items that are beamed down by a UFO that can help or hinder the player, including medicine, mushrooms, crabs, and evil black sheep. The game would also feature different equipment and stats that are chosen at random before each game. The equipment and stats would affect things like how fast the player could move, how high they could jump, and what type of weapon they would have at their disposal. The weapons in the game included things like missiles, bouncing bombs, remotely detonated explosives, and mines. DD Planet, while very simplistic visually, was meant not only to be a video game, but a form of interactive art as well. There were 60 hidden movies in the game which were created by various visual artists and would appear only during rare events. One such event is the appearance of a black hole, which would only show up under very specific circumstances. Once you unlock these movies, however, they can be viewed again at any time from the main menu. Unlike most games in this series, DD Planet was 100% complete before its cancellation, and even had a release date of August 10th, 2001 in Japan. In fact, the game even had copies printed. The game was cancelled because after its initial print run, a game-breaking bug was found in the network code. The release was postponed indefinitely after this discovery, and while they attempted to fix the bug, the game was eventually cancelled altogether. Working copies of this game are out there, including one which was spotted in this picture taken at Sega's US headquarters. Type X Spiral Nightmare was a first-party survival horror game that was first announced in August of 2000 and was to be a Dreamcast exclusive. The game's plot takes place in the year 2078, where three characters, Johann Goodman, Jessica Streep, and Rod Stair, are sent on a mission to investigate some mechanical problems on a space station orbiting Mars. Upon their arrival, they discover the ship has been overrun by hostile alien creatures. They manage to escape to the planet's surface, but things only get worse from there. During the game, you would take control of Johann Goodman as you explore the planet, kill aliens, and converse with the surviving crew members. The bullet creation system is probably one of the most unique aspects of Type X. When you kill an alien in the game, you collect their DNA and use it to create powerful new ammunition that mimics the abilities of the creature. You can also combine DNA samples to create something totally unique. The battle system is very similar to what you'd find in the Resident Evil games and gives you the ability to target specific body parts. Enemies aren't the only thing that can be damaged by your weapons though. The environments were to be completely destructible and would deform when hit. When you're not battling Martians, you'll be talking with the 20 different characters that occupy the planet as you try and gain as much information as possible about the planet's inhabitants. The game was to use something called an emotional communication system, which would allow for the characters to interact in a very realistic way. How you interact with these characters would alter the course of the game, resulting in variations in the story and multiple different endings. Overall, Spiral Nightmare had a lot of unique gameplay mechanics that set it apart from other games in the genre, and would have likely made a fantastic addition to the Dreamcast library. The game was originally targeting a late 2000 release date in Japan, but with the announcement of the Dreamcast discontinuation right around the corner, the game's cancellation was inevitable. Upon the game's announcement in August of that same year, Sega stated the game was about 30% complete. Whether the game ever made it to a playable stage is not known. For many developers, the Dreamcast represented almost unlimited potential. The huge leap in power over the previous generation of consoles opened up a whole new world of possibilities. Whether they wanted to create a huge open world, highly intelligent AI, or just a simple work of art that could be enjoyed by thousands of people over the internet, they could do it. Even though some of these games would never be played outside a development studio, these developers were able to get a taste of what the future of console video games would be like. And that concludes this episode of The Games That Never Were. I hope you enjoyed it, and until next time, thanks for watching.